This is an example of an assembly cut operation using the new NX1872 Mass Properties Management tools. So this little assembly has a base plate here that's made of steel. It's fairly heavy, 3.7994 kilograms. There's a brass tube up here that's being packaged in some risers, right? And these risers here are aluminum. Each of these is fairly light, 0.0264 there. And what we're going to do here is do an assembly cut operation that removes the tops of a bunch of these risers so that this tube will sit down in those risers, nest down in those risers a bit. So right now there are no operations in the assembly, as you can see here. The tube itself, this 0.68, is just this brass tube right here. If I do the entire part, there's another green tool body here that's a solid tube that we're going to use to do the actual assembly cut operation. So in this assembly, if we hide the tube for a minute, you see all of these riser plates are uniform height right now. Again, these are going to be very bumpy in a minute as we subtract away the tube. So here as we do this, you see all of our weights are up to date. Our weight status here shows okay for all of these. These are all set to update on save right now, and so these are all the current ones. So this 50081 is a simple sum of these down below. And again, the riser plates, these are identical riser plates right now. If we unpack this, there are 20 of those that each have that same mass, right? So those are being summed up right there. So let's go do the assembly cut operation. We'll come do an assembly cut here. The target here, we're really going all 20 of those riser bodies. So we'll select all of these guys, not the tubes here. We'll get rid of those. So we have 20 targets. That's the right number. The tool here, we'll use that green tool, subtract that green tool. We'll hide that when we're done. And as we do that, it's going to, again, subtract away the tops of a whole bunch of those risers, which leaves us in this kind of state here, where we've got, again, a groove in place now that tube can go through. Okay, now mass properties wise, what's going on? We've got still have these same 20 riser plates, the original riser plates. Of course, if we go to any of these and look at these in window, we'll see that the original riser plates are not modified here. They're only modified in the context of the assembly. The tube also is not modified. Its mass is the same, so it's unchanged here. The base is unmodified, so it's fine there, but the assembly, of course, has changed. So its weight status right now is set to unreliable or out of date. We need to recalculate it, right? The easiest way to do that is to hit save here, and that'll update the mass on save, and now we see we have a slightly reduced, now 4.9771 mass. That is our assembly mass. Now, with the new tools, we can do a few things. As we come to look at these, we can start to show a mass property panel. If we wanted to see the contribution, for instance, in the old tools of just the assembly, we could come to the properties here. We could look at, say, the mass tab, and we could see here now this negative number, this negative 0.031, that is the mass that's removed by that cut at the assembly level there, for instance. And that you had to know where to look for that, right? And you had to MB3 and get into the properties panel to see that. With the new tools here, we can turn on the mass properties panel, and it's going to start to add this mass properties panel below in the assembly navigator here, right? As we come and select something in here, we can see what we're selecting. We're selecting this assembly, including 23 components. We can see that the mass is up to date. The weight is up to date for this particular one. If it's not, we have an update button right here that we can use to do that. We can see that assembly weight here, this 49771. For each of these, if we select them, we can see not just the mass, but also all of the mass properties down here for each of these components. These were much harder to get to before in the past. Again, we could see the mass only in the properties panel, but if we wanted to look at densities or volumes or areas or things like that, those were much harder to get to before. The riser plate here, again, we'll see with all 20 of them selected here, we can see the cumulative mass of those all together. If we want to unpack these and look at just one of them, we can see the properties of just one. So that's pretty nice. And if we're looking at the assembly, we can see that rolled up mass by default. If we want to see that individual assembly contribution, in this case where we know that we've removed some material, there's a little button over here to see just the assembly only. That'll show us just the assembly contribution here. Again, it'll tell us right here that it's showing us only the assembly contribution in this case, which is that negative mass, or that removal of mass from this particular part. Clicking the assembly again will bring us back to the rolled up values.